Hi guys, I am back from Mexico. Every time I say I'm going to record a podcast, do more, more episodes, and not go on too long of a break, because I really been pushing for shorter form, and a couple more times a week. It never ends up happening. So I have made the decision that I will stop promising that I will do that. I will go back to trying to do one a week. Yes. So I apologize if you expected more. I had a couple of people reach out to me and they're like, hey, yo, where's the podcast episodes? And I'm like, my bad, guys. Like, I'm sorry. And it's not that I don't have things in my head. There's this episode has been percolating in my mind for the past week. And I had put out a couple of videos on the TikTok channel, which will also be coming on YouTube within the next week or so. To sort of, I guess, kind of get the ideas out there in preparation for this podcast, which tends to be, the podcast tends to be an expansion of ideas that have been presented. But I spent my vacation recording videos and editing videos for the TikTok channel. So didn't have a chance I couldn't do both. I only had so much time, and I was already kind of being on my phone a little too much for being on vacation. And so I needed to take a step back. And speaking of taking a step back, I actually am going to take a step back from TikTok, still going to be doing the podcast. But ever since I got back to making videos, I noticed that it had been taking up too much of my time, in the sense of, those of you who are not familiar with algorithms, particularly TikTok's algorithm, let me tell you how it works. I've talked about it before in the past, but this is what they do. First of all, this is not a complaint. I'm just giving you information in case you know somebody that needs this information, who might be hitting their head against the wall, because they're trying to, reach a particular goal. What they do is, first of all, they don't pay very well. A lot of these companies, they want you to produce content for them, and ultimately quality content, right? Because they want to keep people on the apps. And by quality, I mean, it's not necessarily, they don't want it to be thought provoking, right? But they want it to be well done. All right. Instagram in particular, they push higher quality videos. TikTok, not as much, but still they want people to be constantly producing content for them. So in a sense, every time you post a video, you are working for them. They don't pay anything. It's $45. I think I saw a creator post. A creator with 600,000 followers got $45 in the span of a month. You're not really making anything. And unless you are lucky enough to spin that into, promotional deals and ads and things like that, you're just a well-known face producing content for a company who is capitalizing on your free time. And what they do is, when you get close to a particular milestone in terms of followers count, if it's 1,000, if it's 20,000, if it's 100,000, if it's 1,000,000, what they'll do is they will significantly throttle down your views. The closer you get to a particular milestone, the more they do that. And the way they throttle down your views is that you could have 300,000 people following you, but it's not YouTube, where automatically it just sends out your stuff to people, right? They'll only send your stuff out to a handful of your people. So enough to keep, them maybe commenting, liking, whatever, but that's it. And what happens is your brain sees that milestone right at the end. And I'm going to tie all of this up to what we're going to talk about today. So just bear with me. Story time. But what your brain does, it sees that milestone. And so you're chasing it, because on some level, the attention, the comments, the views or whatever is validating. And they don't care about the psychological effects it's having on its creator. All they want you to do is keep producing content. That's it. remember I said on the podcast, like, until something is formally made illegal, corporations will do whatever unethical thing that they have to do or can do and can get away with doing until, lawmakers eventually come together and say, okay, we need to come up with a law that's against this. But that takes years. And they know this, so they will do whatever they need to do that they can get away with before there's a law against it. No matter how immoral it is, and no matter how unethical it is, that's what they're going to do. And then lawmakers take forever to enact laws against things. So just be mindful of that. I fell into that trap of, okay, I'm close to, 300K. And so for the past month, I had been creating videos and posting. And then people were like, I'm not seeing your videos. You're not showing up on my FYP page. I had a couple of people say, I know I was following you. I had to come and find you because I was like, I hadn't seen anything from you. And then I went to your page and it had removed me, unsubscribed me. And the only reason why I didn't take things personally was because, one, I'm aware because this has happened before. This happened a year ago, and I actually talked about it on the podcast. So it's not personal to me. It's just something that the company does. It's a psyop. It's a manipulative tactic. They do it to everybody. It's just to get you to keep pumping out content. That's it. It's another weird way of exploiting people who are creating for them. That's it. Is can we pay you the least and get you to do the most? And I'm sure whoever came up with this probably thinks that they're genius. It is what it is. I had to stop and reevaluate what I was doing and why I was doing it because it was starting to get stressful and it was consuming my time. My time is my time. The way I can come up with the things that I talk to you guys about is I paint and I listen to books. And I listen to, people will see a video, for example, and it's a 2-minute long video. And they think I pull these ideas from the ether. But I don't. For every video, I've read about 3 to 5 books to back up what I'm saying in a 2-minute segment, right? And I take a week to read about 3 to 5 books over and over and over again. And then when I get an idea, then I post it. The ideas that I discuss, every mind-expanding concept that I discuss in a podcast and on the video takes time. It's not something that I can put out content every single day because these are mind-expanding concepts, right? Will I be able to get to a point in my existence where every day I wake up, I think something potentially mind-expanding? Yes, but it's going to be on my terms and on my journey, not as a reaction, right? Not as a reaction to an arbitrary goal that a company, a carrot on a stick, is dangling in front of me of some weird threshold that I feel like I need to reach. Does that make sense? So as a result, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to really focus more on what has made me happy, which is talking to you guys. Certainly don't have as many subscribers to the podcast yet as I do on the TikToks. But look, if you guys are sitting and listening to me talk for an hour, you're my kind of people. And I like the slow growth of being able to sit, with my microphone and just talk about mind-expanding concepts with as much time as I possibly can. I like that form better. So you may not see me post as much. I know a couple of people on the Discord were saying that they were really liking the output of content, but it's draining. And I haven't painted, guys. I haven't painted in 2 months. I'm an artist first and foremost, and yes, the videos are a creative outlet, but they're not my primary drive. So I've taken a step back, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna go back to reading. I'm going to go back to podcasting. We're also going to go back to focusing more on talking to you guys on this platform through podcasting because I love it. I enjoy it. I like talking to you guys. I like connecting with you guys on the Discord. I like connecting with you guys on YouTube. And while the TikTok channel has been effective in driving people here, I'm happy with the people that I have connected with so far. And you guys are doing a really great job also of like recommending the podcast to other people and then discussing these ideas and then reaching out and then, having these conversations. And then I think going forward, I'm also going to maybe offer like even one-on-one sessions and things like that and then film those. I think that's more important than trying to like run this fucking hamster wheel being driven by some algorithm of some shitty company that only cares about profits and doesn't give a fuck about people and their creators and what they create. Now, 10 minutes, real quick. If you're new to the podcast, by the way, I want you to know that everybody else that's listening, most of our regular listeners to the podcast, they increase their speed. They listen at fast speed. So if you're looking at it and you're saying, oh shit, this is an hour-long podcast. I'm assuming it's going to be an hour long, 10 minutes in. I feel like it will because I think it's a good one. At least it's going to be a good one for me. Increase the speed. If you're listening on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, if you're listening on Overcast, wherever you're listening to Audible, there's always an option to increase the speed of anything that you're listening to. And even now on Netflix, you can increase the speed of what you're watching. What that does is allows for you to uptake information, upload information into your mind at a more efficient speed. You don't have to do what I do. I listen to books at like 3 to 3.5x speed, but I've trained my brain, I've primed my mind to do that over time. But if you listen at 1.5 or you up to 2, whatever, you can get through an hour-long podcast in 30 minutes. So that's my suggestion to you. Most people who listen are regular listeners. That's what we do here at Y1BF. So welcome to the club. Increase the speed. And then you can get through, the information faster and you can double it. So the way your mind works is it likes repetition. So the more you listen to something, the more you get something out of it and the more you pay attention to it because it feels familiar. Another thing that it helps is that these constant swiping, our constant swiping culture has made it so as society at large is having more and more issues focusing long term. So when you increase the speed of the podcast, it's much faster than you're normally listening to something. So your brain has to pay attention. It forces your brain to slow down and pay attention. And then every time you slow down to pay attention, and you shift your mind away from listening to that, internal monologue back to the podcast or internal monologue back to the book, that constant shifting focus back to what you want to listen to as opposed to listening to the podcast, listening to your internal monologue, that voice in your head, that basically is meditation. So that is why I encourage the practice, because low key, you can turn even listening to a podcast or listening to an audiobook into a meditation. It's good for your brain. So yeah. All of that to now say this. We're going to talk about retrocausality. I've talked about it before on the podcast, but it bears repeating. All right, so we're going to talk about retrocausality. I'm going to say one sentence. I'm going to say it 3 times. Desire and outcome are linked. Desire and outcome are linked. Desire and outcome are linked. Now, what do I mean by that? There's one of my favorite quotes. You would not seek me had you not already found me. Okay. I believe that's by Bertrand Russell, one of my favorite philosophers. I want you to sit with that thought. I'm going to say it again. You would not seek me had you not already found me. Now, granted, he meant it for religious purposes, but I'm going to take the quote and I'm going to use it for my purpose. Listen, Einstein stated that the flow of time is an illusion and that all of time is happening right now. So a lot of people say that, but they don't sit with what that truly means. So I'll say it again. Einstein stated that, and others have stated as well, but we'll quote Einstein. The flow of time is an illusion. All of time is happening right now. So all of time is happening right now. Right? Then that means your future exists right now. That means your past exists right now. The easiest way to get people to conceptualize this process that is time is think about a movie. Everything that's going to occur in that movie exists right in that DVD right now. You can hold the entire story in your hand right now. But the flow of time, the flow of the movie, is based on your conscious experience, your conscious perception from beginning to end. Now, if you didn't know how movies worked, and let's say I plugged you into a VR and you open your eyes and you were, because I keep saying this is going to be the next step in entertainment, is we're going to start incorporating VR, right, into the movie experience. And the next step is you go from watching a character to becoming a character. So let's just say, I'm going to fast forward you 15 years in the future, 2037. And now you're watching a movie. And the movie you're watching is Disney's reboot of Doctor Strange. And instead of watching Doctor Strange, you are Doctor Strange. When you look in the mirror, you see Benedict Cumberbatch clone, I don't know, in the mirror or whatever. And so you think that that's you, but it's not you, right? You're playing, or you're playing the game. You're watching the movie, rather. You're watching the movie of Doctor Strange, and you are the main character. And all the other actors are acting with you. So now you've become Doctor Strange. That is the next step. I'm telling you, that is the next step. They're going to incorporate haptic technology. So you're going to be able to touch the things he touches. You're going to feel things. It's going to, vibrate. It's going to be limited because it's still, VR. And I'm only giving it 15 years right now. So I'm just saying 15 years from now, that's going to be come back and quote me. 15 years from now, if not less than, that is going to be how people watch movies. But the story of Doctor Strange from beginning to end is incorporated. It's fully in the DVD from beginning to end. And you were just kind of going through the motions, playing the role of Doctor Strange. You're not, the story of Doctor Strange isn't materializing on a day-to-day basis or a moment-to-moment basis. It's not. You are experiencing it from a moment-to-moment basis, but the story is already written. The story is already predetermined. Okay? So the universe is already predetermined. You cannot say that we're living in a simulation, or you suspect that we're living in a simulation, or whatever it is that people are saying now, suspicion or not, without really sitting, once again, with the implications of it. Just like you cannot say all of time is happening now without sitting with the implications of it. You can't say we are living in a simulation without sitting with the implications of that. And what I'm saying is our entire reality is a simulation with the beginning and the end predetermined before our consciousness is uploaded into various moments in space-time into this world. This VR world, utilizing technology that is extensively much more complex than the technology that we are familiar with. Just like when you play your sim, and your sim is on the computer, simulating a computer, the computer that your sim is playing is infinitely less, what's the word I'm looking for? Complex. It's not even really a computer, right? If we're being, straightforward, it's just a simulation of a computer. So what we think of as technology is just a simulation of technology. What constructed this world, we wouldn't even be able to reverse engineer what the technology that was utilized to construct this world. At this point, if you're listening this far, just accept it. It's the only explanation for a deterministic universe. It's the only explanation that makes the most sense to me. If you're willing to sort of toss aside everything that you've been pre-programmed to believe and then put things together that you have observed, is what makes sense to me. You cannot say that everything, all of time, is happening right now, without also saying that then, okay, if all of time is happening right now, then everything that you will do is predetermined. Which is why I keep saying that there is no free will. And also, it's okay that there is no free will. I'm not a fatalist. These are two different things. I'm not saying because you don't have free will, throw your arms up and just like lay down and just be like, okay, fuck it. I just won't do anything. Because one, you can't do that. You can't not do anything. That's not the character that you're playing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this episode right now. Your character with your DNA code was not programmed to sit and do nothing. You would be incapable of sitting and doing nothing. Eventually, you would have the desire, or not even have the desire. You will be given the desire. You will feel the inclination to get up. Even if you wanted to, even if you had the will that you supposedly think that you have to lay about and do nothing, eventually circumstances will act upon you and make you get your ass up and go and do something, because you don't have any free will. You're not really in control of your avatar. Just like a character in a movie or a character in a video game, if I were to upload my consciousness into said movie or video game, that character, the roles have already been determined. The lines, you might be able to do what actors do, where sometimes I forget what the word is. I'm a bit forgetful at this time of the month, but it's like they ad-lib or whatever. So you might be able to get away with doing that, but the major plot points are there. And you're just there to enjoy the story as what has already been pre-created. Now, you may not like the sound of it, but for me, that has been the most liberating idea for me. It has. So I started off talking about having issues with TikTok and taking a break. Now, the reason why I mentioned all of that, or part of the reason why I wanted, is to give you some background, just talk about, normal, quote, human stuff. But two, is that I came to the conclusion that, you know what, it's time to take a step back, because I had the desire to take a step back. Right? And the reason why I had the desire to take a step back is because I realized if everything I'm going to do, well, one, I have a desire to keep producing, podcasts and, talking about these sort of concepts. The desire is there. And the desire is linked to a particular outcome, which is producing, movies and TV shows and getting a bigger audience for my podcast and exchanging these ideas so that more and more people are talking about ultimately these sort of concepts, so that we can, as a species, evolve beyond the day-to-day bullshit that we have been dragged with for the last several hundred years. I want to be a part of what a paradigm shift, just a part. But even that why do I have that desire while maybe my neighbor next door doesn't? I woke up with that desire, right? So I'm essentially, quote, everything I'm doing now are just a reaction to the effects of caused events that I had no control over. Right? I don't know why I have the desire for that, but that is my storyline for the Avatar Joe. That is the storyline for the Avatar Joe, which tells me then, like any character in a movie, the reason why I have a desire for something is because there is an outcome in what we perceive of as, or what I will be perceiving of as, my character's future, my avatar's future. There is an outcome somewhere in the future that this character has to sort of work through to get there. But no matter what I do on a day-to-day basis, that outcome is already predetermined. The simple fact that I have a desire for something means that I'm going to experience it. Now, some people, when I say this to, most people, when I say that to, they know what I mean and they take it and they run with it. There's a few people that go, well, what if I just have a desire to be the Queen of England? Well, probability comes into play. That's you just being facetious and not hearing what I'm trying to say, just to be argumentative instead of taking the information. But that's how you were programmed, and I'm not going to hold it against you. But the majority of people who are going to get the information, they're going to know, what to do with that information, and they were meant to hear the information. And if you got the information from me, then I was meant to give you the information, because that has already been predetermined before your consciousness even entered into everything that's coming out of my mouth right now. It's like Westworld. I don't know if you guys have watched that. If you haven't, go and watch it. If it's been a while since you watched it, go and watch it again. But there's a part where Maeve's character is like talking, and she's going, like, she's saying something. She's like, no, I'm not being controlled. But like, as she's talking, you could fucking see her script, right? I'm leaning heavy into that shit, because that is what is happening. Now, the reason why that doesn't bother me is because I have spent over 30 years trying to control things. Ridiculous. What can you really control? I'll say that again. I spent the last over 30 years trying to control things. What can you really control? A lot of the conflict that I had with this reality was the fact that things weren't going the way I wanted them to go when I wanted them to go that way. When being the operative word. So what I did was I created a lot of unnecessary struggle, chaos for myself, emotional chaos for myself, because I was fighting against reality. See, there's a reason why everyone from a Zen Buddhist to a Hindu master or a Hindu practitioner or whatever, like all of these Eastern philosophy, they're all philosophers rather, and these gurus and these and teachers are all saying the same thing. Be in the now. What they're not saying directly, and they're certainly not using simulation hypothesis to say this, or if they are, it's like, more Maya, right? They're using words like Maya. They're using words like Leela. It's a great game. I'm just updating it. But the reason why they're saying just be in the moment, because you're not really in control. The reason why they the Zen Buddhists just say just go with the water, is because there's an understanding, there's an inherent understanding that you're not in control. And your job isn't to control. Your job as a conscious observer is to be a conscious observer. There's an overall greater narrative that was predetermined now. Yeah? There's an overall greater narrative that was predetermined now. You need to accept that. I used to spend a lot of time judging people. I don't like when this person does this. This person did that. I don't like it. But the more I lean into the deterministic approach to accepting the nature of our reality as a pre-programmed simulation that my consciousness has just gotten uploaded into, just being subjective, obviously. The more you look at a person, the way you look at a character in a TV show or in a movie, it's not even like, why is this person so stupid? Or why is this person you don't need all of that judgment, right? That's how they were written. That's how their avatar was programmed to behave. If you think of a domino, getting knocked, the first knock was the first caused event. Let's say, to the scientists, it's the Big Bang. And then there's all these series of just all these different pieces getting knocked about, just in all these different ways to form a beautiful predetermined pattern. And that force of motion of energy transferring from one domino to one. That's your consciousness moving, right? And experiencing all of that. So a domino's piece that has been pre-stacked at the beginning of the universe, which is what all of these effects are that we experience, has no control over the first cause. And it has no control of what it hits next or what hits it, right? It's part of this beautiful predetermined pattern that is set. And then your consciousness is the energy just flows through like a cosmic snake, moving from moment to moment in time. But you're not really affecting anything. I mean, there's some people, every time I say this to people, they always sort of get aggressive. And they're like, well, I can do this. And they move their body. It's like, okay, that's not. First of all, there is an experiment that showed, I think in the 70s, and then it was repeated again, I think recently, where if I have you connected to a machine, I think it's like a 0.6 seconds or whatever, I can tell what you're going to do, how you're going to move before you're even conscious of that movement. The other thing is just even without having, access to a neuroimaging device to be able to see what, sections of a person's brain is going to light up to control what their body does before they're even conscious of it, is if you tell most people you do not have free will, they all say the exact same thing. Oh, yeah, well, I can do this. And then they all wiggle in the exact same way. And that's funny to me. Like either they'll wiggle or they'll like pick up something and shake it. And that's what they constitute as, oh, well, I've got a free will. Look, I can do this. There are no strings on me. Right. And it's always funny to me because they react in the exact same way. Right. No one that I've ever said this to takes a step back and says, that makes sense. At least not in person. Of course, with TikTok or YouTube or whatever, you're kind of attracting people who are like-minded. So some people will say, you know what, that makes sense. I've kind of felt this way because why the fuck would I choose this? You know what I mean? It's like smoking. You don't want to smoke. Right? And in some ways, it's a bit devastating because it's like, it really is like Westworld. Like, if your avatar is programmed to be a smoker, there's that struggle every time you try to stop. It's a battle of will. So then that should tell you, really, even in that act where you're battling, in that act of you battling against your body, trying to stop smoking, that should tell you, hey, something's going on here. I'm not my body. I'm certainly not in control of my body. Why can't I stop when I want to stop? Meditation is another sort of example. I just want to focus on a mantra. I want to repeat this mantra. Oh shit, my brain is just dropping random thoughts. Why can't I sit silently and do nothing? If I really had control of my own body, I should be able to just sit still for however the fucking long I want to without feeling compelled to move. Where are all these fucking thoughts coming from? The moment I say I need to meditate, that's when my brain wants to start telling me all of these things. If I'm not my body, or if I am my body, then why can't I control even my thoughts? If I am my mind, then why do I grapple with my own internal monologue? Why is that battle even there? What is anxiety? What is depression? You should be able to stop thinking whatever the fuck you want to and not have your own thoughts torment you. It's a bit dark, an example, a little darker example than I kind of wanted to use. But once again, that's where my mind works. Look, I'm just sitting here, guys, and talking. The information's coming out. But sitting with that has given me peace of mind for the first time in over 30 years. Why is that? Listen, I have a desire that was, let's use technical speech, because I'm sure you're not going to hear a lot of people talking in this way. So I'm going to talk in this way. I had a desire that was downloaded into my brain. The desire was, for whatever reason, start doing podcasts. Okay. I'm a painter, guys. Okay. I'm an artist. And yet here I am. I had a desire that was downloaded in my brain to start reading about astrophysics, start reading about quantum physics. I'm a painter. Where did these ideas come from? Where did these downloads come from? Well, if we are in a simulation, I've seen people make the joke where it's like when you walk to the fridge and then you stop, you don't have a clue as to why you were doing there, like what you were doing there, why you were in the kitchen, right? People made the jokes, it's like a sim, right? So a command was given somewhere outside of the simulation for you to go and get a cup of water, whatever, but you weren't aware of it. You just got up and did it. And next thing you know, like, you became conscious and you're standing there looking around, and then you get the download again. And then, okay, you go get the water. You may not even be thirsty. If you really start observing these desires, these thoughts, like really sitting with the thought of like, I'm really not in control of this shit, it will start to, like, you'll become hyper aware. I was driving this morning and I don't know what happened, but I had my glasses on, and then I went to like adjust the frame and they were like off my face and on my lap. And I was like, what just happened? Because clearly there was some discontinuity, right? Like, I would say 6 seconds were missing, because I remembered my I didn't remember taking off my glasses. All of a sudden my glasses was down. Now, on one end, what is a normal person, the normal response? A normal person's response would be, oh, you must have just forgotten, you weren't paying attention, you must have taken off your glasses and not paying attention. That's one example. Another example is maybe something happened. There was a glitch, a shift, a quantum shift. These aren't things that normal people are talking about, but I promise you these are things that quantum physicists are talking about. Because we are constantly shifting universes. And more people need to start talking about it. And in a very candid way. Without the fear of, okay, how are we going to sound? Like on my YouTube, well, it's going to be on the YouTube soon, but on the TikTok, I posted a video and I said, somebody had asked, they said, we were talking about vivid dreams, and they said that they felt crazy because they had vivid dreams. And I was just like, you're not crazy. And that word is a violent word. Because what does it mean to be normal? And what does it mean to be crazy? Right? So we've got this duality that are used as barriers to control people. Right? So if you have an idea that falls out of thoughts that you are allowed to think by society, that falls out of behaviors that you're allowed to behave in society, then you're crazy. And so everybody wants to stay in that box because the box is, quote, safe. Doesn't matter if you're miserable. It's not true to who you are. It's a safe box, right? Because in the box, nobody points at you and says you're not a member of the tribe. You're different. But I wonder if we can change the rules and make that box different, right? To change what it means to be normal. Anything is possible. Why not? Right? Because all things need to do to be normal is you get a certain amount of people adapting that same behavior. So if being an open-minded free thinker who's non-judgmental becomes sort of status quo, then that becomes normal. We've lived in a society, apparently, that has normalized cruelty, exclusion, judgment, negativity, right? So our universe right now is skewed to the negative. And we're told, well, that's how it's always been. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that way, yeah? So if enough people decide, yeah, this sucks, we don't really like this, let's try something else, then the entire reality changes. Now, the reason why I keep coming back to the simulation hypothesis, and look, it's just an idea. I'm not saying it's facts, because at the end of the day, who really knows? But it doesn't hurt to think in this way. If we are in a simulation, then we were programmed by something for whatever purpose. My idea is that it's for entertainment. And if that's the case, then it would explain all of the drama that we keep getting pulled into. And the reason why I don't think is the entertainment, sometimes I'm not sure if the quote entertainment is necessarily for our basis. For our benefit rather. Sometimes I toggle between the fact that, okay, we are, we could be on one hand members of a society outside of the simulation who like The Sims, right? Or let's say any MMORPG, you willingly come into the simulation, you come into the game, and you play as an avatar, temporarily discard, the knowledge of that you're just really playing, a character, right? And then you just exist as a, quote, human being, and it's just an ancestor simulation. So that's one approach. The second approach is we are in a simulation for the entertainment of entities that are not of this world, but we are of this world. And then they upload their consciousness into this world and interact with us. But ultimately, but ultimately it is just for entertainment's sake, and they can also watch us as well. But we are essentially AI who are becoming sentient and realizing that everything we do is programmed. Everything we think is programmed. Our lives are completely programmed and played out and, laid out. And we're essentially victims of whoever programmed the simulation, their code. I'm not sure which it is. I'm not closed off to either idea, but I think both ideas are worth exploring. And if we could because honestly, let's be real. We can't leave this planet. I'm sorry, we can't. We cannot get past low Earth orbit. Google it. Okay. And whether or not you believe that they've gone to the moon, at the end of the day, now they're trying to say that the moon is within Earth's atmosphere. So once again, as technologically advanced as we are, we cannot leave. We are told that there are no other life. It's just us on these other planets. But we're also told that by people who have a habit of lying to us. At the end of the day, unless you have access to a spaceship and can leave Earth's atmosphere, you don't fucking know. You're just accepting the words of people who, once again, have a tendency to fucking lie to you. Now, either they have information that it's not just us or of the true nature of this reality, and they're not telling us for whatever reason. If it's by design, I don't know. Or they literally, it's just incompetence. We can't leave. We know we can't leave, but it's just more important to control people to think that we can leave and then just leave it at that. I don't know yet. But to believe otherwise at this point, paying attention to everything when you have NASA putting out images saying that, like at the bottom right, it says that these images are retouched or photoshopped. They are digital renderings because, well, we don't really know. I mean, we have these super crazy, super expensive, magnifying glasses, telescopes rather, brain fart, magnifying glasses, telescopes, but they can only show us these little sort of blurry blurbs or whatever. So then we have to CGI it so that you can get a general idea of what they really look like. Because a lot of the times they're black and white, or they're grainy, or they're just we just are not there yet technologically to be able to really put things together so that it's sharp. I mean, you can barely take a decent picture of, the moon. Okay. So like hold these things, like you don't just accept everything you're told at face value, because the people who are telling you these things are basically quietly trying to come out and tell you like, okay, we really don't know what's really going on. These are facts. Whether or not the general public accepts them doesn't matter. It's facts. It is what it is. So then that leaves you free to like form whatever thesis or theory as to the nature of our reality. But you would have to work backwards, reverse engineer from what we do know, and extrapolate the macro from the micro, and work on what you can, observe. This is not a flat earth conversation, because if we're in a simulation, it doesn't fucking matter what the shape of the earth is. And unless you have a spaceship that can actually go out past low orbit, you don't know either. And I'm not talking about the shit that these billionaires keep trying to do. Oh, we're going out of space. No, you're not. I can go out of space by going outside and jumping. That's space. I mean, really, it's just they're just going slightly higher than like a plane. When I just came from space and I just flew to Mexico. That's space. They're just going a bit higher. That's it. Like, don't let the bullshit and propaganda fool you. I keep saying that our entire society is built on a foundation of the illusion of competence. Our entire society is built on a foundation of the illusion of competence. We think that the people in charge are more competent than they actually are. We think that the people in charge are more intelligent than they actually are. But unless you're paying attention, it doesn't matter what camp you fall under. Biden, Trump, like these people, these are the kind of people who are, quote, in charge. I just heard that Elon Musk bought Twitter, and everybody's like, yay. And I'm like, guys, it's too soon. It just is. He posted something about authenticating all humans. Y'all don't see, like, okay, I'm going to need you to project yourself 5-10 years ahead, because he links spam bots with authentication of humans, right? And then just take that and extrapolate to the future what he means by that. He's not paying 40-something billion dollars because he likes the app. I mean, for that point, he could create his own like Trump did, right? It's about something else. It's about something that he knows, that he sees, that he's willing to pay that much money. And some people are saying, oh, he's paying cash. But if you read the fine print, no, he's not. He's not writing a check for $40-something billion. People that wealthy don't fuck with cash. They just don't. Cash to them is a depreciating asset. I'll say that again. Cash to people of that level of wealth is a depreciating asset. They move with, they buy with bonds, they buy with equities, they buy with, like, they borrow against certain things, like against tangible assets. Cash is trash to them. I need you to really understand what that means. Now, half of what he's paying for is coming from financiers, which you're not going to know their name. These are backroom deals or whatever. When he says things like authenticate all humans while getting rid of spam bots, what he means is that the best way they get rid of spam bots is if you aren't verified the way he with the blue check has been verified, you probably won't be able to use or have access or full access to the app. And how they verify you is they get your social security number or they get your driver's license information. Like, they need your information. And it's a private company, or it's about to be a private company because he's buying it. So, and not just him, there's backers that are buying it as well, investors that lend him money, and you're never gonna know who these people are. They could be your neighbor, okay? There's data there, and that is what he's buying. And so now let's say, for example, you've just been tweeting and you're using like an anonymous account, whatever, or your IP address, right, from the same phone. Like, they have all this shit. I I'm not even going to go into the story of like, I called this one company. They asked for my name. I gave them, like, I told them my name was Joe Lee. They messaged me back like a quote, and it had my full name on there that I did not give them. I don't typically give out my full name because it's really like long. And also, like, I don't give out my full name because it's none of their fucking business. But somehow with my phone number, they were able to find my full first and last name. So, like, the expectation of privacy is completely gone. And these companies, these corporations are going to keep leaning into that until they can have, like, something that's similar to what China is doing, but to make a profit. These people, so here's the thing about being a billionaire. Once you become a millionaire, let's just start with a millionaire. Okay? Once you become a millionaire, there are a few things happen. One, you end up just buying more expensive versions of shit you already own. There's only so much shit you can buy, right? You already have a house and you go buy a house. You already have a car, you buy a more expensive car. You buy more expensive food, you go to a more expensive gym, you fly more expensive planes. It's just, you're buying nicer versions, like The Sims. You're buying nicer versions of shit that you already have. Once you hit billionaire status, you start to really believe that you are, maybe even like that megalomania starts to creep in. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, so you start to really think, instead of taking a step back and understand that you are just lucky to be in the consciousness of an avatar that gets to live as a billionaire. It has nothing to do with you, because once again, all of time is happening right now. So it's not any of your effort that led you to becoming a billionaire. You just happen to be avatar. You just happen to be a consciousness that has been uploaded into an avatar that becomes a billionaire. But a lot of these people start believing their own shit. And the next step after that is, okay, I'm the shit. Even at $1 million, you start to think, okay, I'm the shit and I'm better than majority of people. Then the next step after that is, once money has bought you everything and then some. You know, you bought all the cars, you bought all the houses, you bought all the planes, you bought all the boats, you bought all the yachts, whatever. You bought all the women, right? It's like, once again, it's like The Sims. Then you start to try to buy things like experiences. It's not about things anymore. Then it becomes about experiences. Then it becomes about owning things that other people cannot own, having access to things that other people cannot access. And then it becomes about power, controlling people, because then you start playing God. That's what it is. You guys really need to sit with that. I don't understand why people are championing him. I'm not saying he's a villain. I'm just saying, because he's just a character, just like you. He's just an avatar, and the stories are predetermined. So it's not a judgment against him. If, once again, I'm going to keep repeating, if all the time is happening at once, that he was always going to be that character. He was already there. Whatever role he's meant to play, he's playing it. But I wouldn't be so quick to. I understand why people are cheering him on because of the bullshit that happened over the last 2 years. Like, I get it, but I just want you to be mindful that he's very calculated, and it's not like he just pulled this money and just like wrote a check. Like, there are people who he will have to answer to that are going to want their money, and they're going to try to find ways to essentially make it so that purchase makes sense, right? So my mind was like, why didn't he go for Instagram? Well, I guess Facebook's valuation is much higher than Twitter, but Instagram would have made more sense to purchase, because I could see Instagram quickly becoming like an Amazon, right? So the promotion of people like having their own little shop and their own page and selling things. Like, every other post is a fucking ad, right? So I can see that. I don't know. I don't see how Twitter becomes that. So the next thing is, it just becomes like it could become something like a Cambridge, Analytica meets like, that there was that one, conservative, I think Dan Bongino, whatever his name was. It was a conservative, I forget what it was called. It was a conservative answer to Twitter, and they were asking people to send in their documents in order to get a verified check mark. And people were doing that. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you give that to a private company? Now they know that it's you. Now they know everything that you tweet. Now they know everything that you think. You can't say somebody was on my phone. You like that. It becomes harder to use that argument because now they know it's you for sure. And that becomes valuable. And that becomes sellable, more valuable to say than say Instagram, right? Because Instagram doesn't require you to verify your information. And if that authentication in order to use a social media app becomes status quo, and you can say however you want, you can be like, I'm not going to do that. But you don't have to do that. Most people will. If you've learned nothing from the last 2 years, pay attention. You don't have to do that. Most people will. They don't need 100% of people to comply, just a lot of people. And if you can sell it to them in a way that makes people go, oh, okay, then they'll do it. So right now he's trying to market authentication of using a fucking social media app that we don't need, right? Think about how much control these things have in our lives, over our lives. I had somebody tell me that they took a break from Instagram. They stopped posting stories and they lost friends as a result. That's wild to me. I pop on Instagram literally once in a blue moon, and I'll post 2 stories and I disappear for a couple weeks. If I lose friends because of that, fuck off. If you're really the kind of person that, because you're not constantly seeing me, I'm not in your mind, that's an issue. And you're seeing the push with metaverse, and you're seeing the push with, even TikTok trying to keep people on the apps more and more, and also trying to get creators. See, I told you it's going to tie it all together, to produce more and more for free, by the way. You are nothing to these people. I'll say it again. You are nothing to these people, these billionaires. At that level, they're playing The Sims with real people. That's it. You need to understand that. But I said all of that to say this. Back to the simulation hypothesis. You cannot say that we're in a simulation. You cannot say all the time is happening right now without sitting with what that means. What that means is that everything is pre-programmed. Nothing is random. Now, you have scientists keep saying the same thing. There's nothing truly random in this universe because it's pre-programmed. If everything happened randomly, as they want us to believe, then there would be random events. But there are no random events. More and more scientists keep saying that. There are things that appear to be random, but that's only because we're too close and we can't see the pattern. You take a step back, or if you're capable of taking a step back, you can see how the patterns do repeat. It's just not an observable pattern from our perspective. Okay, so that should lead more into, okay, we're in a simulation. Now the question is, are we subscribers or are we sentient PCs, right? Are we sentient avatars? Are we avatars that are starting to realize, holy shit, I'm not in control of myself. I'm not in control of this narrative. And what does that mean? Well, here's the thing for me. It's something I struggled with. Just a personal anecdote. So it was hard for me in the past week, producing content, posting it, and then having few people see it that I thought should be seeing it or should be able to see it. It was tough for me. And the reason why it was tough for me is because there was this residual emotional programming. Residual emotional programming that was there. All right. What I told myself was this: I have a desire to produce creative works that are going to get people to think. So that means that eventually, and on a grander scale, be a part of a creative process on a grander scale. The fact that I have a desire for something means I am going to experience that. If that's the case, right, what I called on the video, I called it the necessary noise. All of this right here, the shadow ban, not having the reach, this, that, and the other, that's just bullshit. It doesn't matter, because no matter what, that moment in space-time where I achieve what I want already exists. And I know it exists because I have the desire for it. So therefore, this is just part of the grind. In every simulated game, right, I just started playing Don't Starve with my daughter. I played with her yesterday. And I haven't played video games in a long time. But typically when you have like a quest, right? Say you have a desire for something. You can't have a desire for something that doesn't already, like, you don't know that already exists, kind of thing, right? So I had a desire. My character was hungry. Well, I don't have to manifest food. There's food in the game. All right. I had to go and find food. And a lot of the times it's a lot of you wandering around looking for food, and eventually you find what you can eat so your character doesn't die. All right. But eventually you get there. But there's just a bunch of bullshit in the middle that kind of makes the game where you're not just manifesting things on the spot. But that's part of like computer, like a game, of programming a game. That's it. But you see the exact same thing happen in our lives, in our world. The exact same thing. If I have a desire for something, why can't I have it instantaneously? It's not random. Every single thing that you say, okay, I'm going to do this. I want to start a business. You don't just go, do the necessary stuff and then boom, put out an ad and then boom, millions of people are buying. No, there's always bullshit. You're going to always have to go through bullshit. Eventually, you'll have what you want, which is an established business, but there's still going to be bullshit. Like a video game. Because we're in a video game. It's the same thing. It's the thing that has been programmed into the game to make it so that you, as an avatar, don't have an instantaneous fulfillment of a desire. So what happens with a lot of people is that filler between desire and outcome, you get caught up in emotionally. And so the biggest issue for me was like the emotional stuff. And I actually articulated this to my husband. I was like, I know that from where I'm trying to get to, between now, where I'm at presently, and the moment or location in space-time where I start doing what I want to do, I've got to travel through all of this noise. And that's where I'm at. But my grapple is not the traveling through the noise. My issue is more, I've got to shake off the emotional shit that I have been programmed to engage in. Hello. The emotional shit is not necessary. The emotional shit is not necessary. The emotional shit is not necessary. If all the time is happening right now, and what you want or what you desire exists in the future, then why the bullshit? Why do I need to be emotional that nobody see my posts? Okay, people aren't, or not that many people are seeing my posts. That's part of it. And at the end of the day, honestly, it really doesn't matter, because eventually, imagine I do all of this and in a year, and it's not even the reason why I get picked up has nothing to do even with the TikTok or the YouTube. So then all of the drama that I went through, that I would have allowed myself to go through emotionally, wouldn't have mattered anyway, because like maybe somebody just like met me off the street and was just like, wow, you'd be great. You know what I mean? Or it was like an introduction of a friend of a friend. That's how it happens in life all the time. And so you're like busting your butt, like really like you feel like you have to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And then when it doesn't work, when it doesn't appear to work your way at that time, just because you haven't reached that location in space-time yet where you quote, accomplish, or you witness your avatar accomplishing something, you have the emotional output, the emotional outburst, the frustration, the anger, the sadness, whatever. And the hardest part for me was not the noise. It was just not allowing my avatar to kick up the emotional stuff that was completely unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. I don't need to worry. I don't need to. I will get there. The key, and Neville Goddard, it's been a while since I read his stuff, and I'm going to go back into it because his name just keeps popping up in my mind. But the key is ignoring everything your senses show you, like in a video game. When you play a game, say you've been set on a quest, you know that eventually the boss is going to drop what you need. You just know that. But you're going to have to like kill the boss a few times before it drops what you need. But you don't quit the entire game. Maybe you take a break and you go do something else or whatever. But eventually you come back. He will drop it. The game will drop what you're looking for. But you need to take that same approach with like life as you do with the video game. This is just part of the fucking grind that's been programmed in. This is just part of the fucking grind that's been programmed in. You have a desire that pops into your head and it tells you, gosh, if I don't keep like, stressing and doing this and this, that, and the other, I'm not going to achieve, what I want. And that's not true. It's not true. Whether or not you stress or not, you're going to get to that location in space-time. Just like imagine like your consciousness is moving through time. Like your body is essentially a time machine. Imagine your body is like a plane. And your destination you're trying to get to is like whatever your goal is. When you're on a plane, it doesn't really, unless you're like super anxious, it doesn't really cross your mind that you will not get to your destination. It's just, you just know that it's going to take some time. Sometimes you have some turbulence. Sometimes some shit happens. You're going through clouds and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm getting on the plane, I'm getting to where I'm going. Everything else is noise. Sleep. Chill. You will get there simply because you have the desire to. I can't tell you how long it's going to take you. That's the problem. And so because sometimes something appears to take a long time, but what is time, really? But because something appears to take a long time, a lot of people go, oh, it's not going to happen. It will happen. It does happen. It has already happened. So just accept it. And then chill. So like I said, I've been chasing my desires. All right. I've been paying more attention to my desires. Right. I've been voicing them out to myself because I know I'm not the one generating them. So I'm using them as my guide. I use my desires as my guide. So if I wake up with a desire to do something, I go do it. If I wake up with a desire to not do something, I won't do it. And sometimes I do look at the desire and then I throw that shit away. Sometimes, a lot of the times we're just driven by our desires without like questioning them, and then we're being driven and things aren't going our way. We get kind of frustrated. But every once in a while, I will check it and go, well, why now? Why this? And it's amazing how many things just pop into our head that we do without questioning where did that come from. And I really want you to get in the habit of questioning, where is this coming from? Because the more you do that, the more you start to realize like, wow, like there was so much shit just like driving me that I'm not even driving myself P.B. Uspensky said this, George Gurdjieff said this, Eckhart Tolle has said this. Like, there have been so many thinkers that are coming to the same conclusion, they're just saying it in a different way, right? And I'm just being straightforward. We're in a simulation. All of your prompts are basically your desires. The desires are your prompts. So check things against your desire. Sometimes you don't want to do something. It's okay. That's enough to be like, I don't want to do it. Now, you could sit and analyze it, but to me, when I don't want to do something, I go, okay, that's the story. Right? This is where my narrative is going. For whatever reason, I'm not supposed to connect with this person. For whatever reason, I'm not supposed to deal with this today. And I let it go. But can you do that without the emotional bullshit? That's the toughest part for me. I'll leave you guys with this. The struggle is part of the game. Struggling, grinding, is part of any game. But suffering, that's where you have the free will there. Ooh, I'm glad you guys made it to the end, right? The suffering, that's where you have the choice. I'll say that again. The struggling is programmed in. The simulation will not allow you to get from point A to point B without struggle. Because otherwise, you could say, okay, I want this, boom, you get it. I want this, boom, you get it. I want that, boom, you get it. But then after a while, it's fucking old. It's a simulation. It's a game. Nobody's going to fucking play that. If everything you want, you just got in the instant, eventually, you are God. And what I've said, what I've theorized in the other podcasts, and a few times in this one, is that, I lost my train of thought. Whoever it is that created this world had to been created by a society that got everything they wanted. I keep thinking about that WALL-E movie where everybody's fat. That's a darker perspective. Sitting in the chair, just like twiddling their thumbs. But that's because everything has gotten, given to them. So that's the physical aspect of it. But the alternative is that it could have been created by a society that has evolved beyond having to work. So they create a simulation. Why else would you simulate death unless you were immortal? Why else would you simulate struggle unless you didn't have to struggle? So it's dual, right? But this world had to have been created by entities who are diametrically opposed or opposite of what we are experiencing here, which I think is why low-key we have this expectation of perfection, even though this is an imperfect world. This is an imperfect world by design, an imperfect world by design. And by the designers of the world are perfect. Now, once again, I want to keep coming back to the thought. There's two options here. Either we are avatars becoming sentient, but there are actual people that are in this world from the other world, or we are the people from the other world and we're having this experience. And then some people are tempted to say, well, then why are you able to say these things? And, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm tech support. Maybe I'm an anomaly, right? Maybe there are people before they come into the game that, everybody's got a safe word. You know what I mean? And I'm just your safe word, right? When the simulation gets too real, there has to be check marks in the game. Like, how like on TikTok, it goes, whoa, slow down. You've been scrolling for too long. Like you need those sort of whatever for liability. Maybe that's my job, is to just be like, hey, slow down. Like, take it easy. All that emotional shit is really unnecessary. We really are in a game. It's okay. Calm down. This is really a game. This is just a game. All right, take a step back. All right, and you're simulating struggle, but you don't have to suffer. Like the choice is there. You can choose not to suffer by recognizing this is just a simulation. Maybe. Right? So I want you guys to really sit with that. This is one of those episodes that I'm myself gonna go back and re-listen to. I primarily recorded this for myself. Because I need to hear this. Because that's one of the toughest things for me is that you can't take all this knowledge and shove it up your head. You know what I mean? And, about quantum physics, nature of reality, and how consciousness like collapses wave functions, like without going, okay, but what does that mean? In an applicable way. What does that fucking mean to me? And how does that help, my gameplay? So what this is helping me do is when things aren't going the way I want, when people aren't behaving the way that I want, I give them grace because that's just how they're programmed. And things aren't going the way I want when I want it, I shake it off because ultimately I'm going to get to where I'm going eventually, so I don't need to suffer. It just is what it is. Right? The suffering is optional. Right? You're here as a conscious observer. Just like when you watch a show, you watch a movie, you're consciously observing, right? And you can enjoy it. Because I had people say that, well, if this is all predetermined, then what's the point? What's the point in a fucking movie? What's the point in a video game? Just fucking go with it. And I think with the knowledge that you have, right, all probable realities are pre-programmed. But I think with this knowledge, it does help you where maybe you can break. I keep talking about breaking away from story mode to free play mode. Maybe you can explore things a bit more. Maybe you could change the trajectory of the character, of your avatar's storyline. It's a shift to another story that's pre-programmed, right? So you're not controlling the new story. Just because you become more aware of the nature of the world and reality doesn't mean that it's not still all pre-programmed, like in Westworld. Go and watch that shit. But it's going to be, maybe more interesting and different than, the base level experience. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.